The underestimated fleet, the deep space sensors of the Vortan Empire's monitoring station, picked up the unusual signatures 3 standard cycles ago. Admiral Crix studied the holographic display showing the human vessels moving through what the Vorthons considered their territorial buffer zone. The ships looked nothing like proper military vessels. They were blocky, utilitarian, and covered in what appeared to be cargo containers and civilian modifications. These are their warships. Admiral Crix asked his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Vex. The Vorthon's forearms gestured dismissively at the display. They look like freight haulers that someone attached engines to. Lieutenant Vex consulted his datapad, his large compound eyes scanning the information. According to our scouts, Admiral, these humans have only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their technology appears to be several centuries behind our own. These vessels seem to be converted civilian ships pressed into military service. The Vorthan Empire had been the dominant force in this sector of the galaxy for over 2 millennia. Their ships were sleek, elegant constructions of biometal that could reshape themselves during combat. Their weapons could strip electrons from matter itself, and their shields could deflect the energy of a small star. No species had ever successfully challenged Vorthan supremacy. Admiral Crix's flagship, the Stellar Dominion, was a masterpiece of Vorthan engineering. 3 kilometers long and shaped like a graceful predator, it housed enough firepower to sterilize a planet's surface. The bridge was a work of art, with flowing organic curves and bioluminescent displays that responded to thought as much as touch. How many human vessels are we tracking? Admiral Crix inquired. 15 ships, Admiral. All appear to be of similar design. Crude construction, primitive propulsion systems, and what looks like improvised armor plating. Our analysts believe they are exploratory vessels, possibly establishing trade routes. Admiral Crix nodded thoughtfully. The humans were expanding into space, as all successful species eventually did. The Vorthan Empire had dealt with dozens of such emerging civilizations. The process was always the same. Make contact, demonstrate superior technology, offer protection in exchange for tribute and submission. Most species saw the wisdom in joining the Empire peacefully. Open a communication channel to the lead human. Vessel, Admiral Crix commanded. The main display shifted to show the bridge of the human ship. The being that appeared was tall by human standards, with short dark hair and intense green eyes. He wore a simple uniform without the ornate decorations that typically marked military leadership in advanced civilizations. Behind him, other humans worked at stations that looked remarkably basic compared to Vorthan technology. This is Commander Zephyr Thane of the United Earth ship Thunderstrike, the human said. His voice was calm and measured. You are operating in the outer regions of human space. State your intentions. Admiral Crix was amused by the human's directness. Most species were more deferential when first encountering Vorthan vessels. I am Admiral Crix of the Vorthan Empire. Your vessels have entered territory claimed by our empire. You will halt your advance and prepare for boarding. Your ships and crew will be processed according to imperial law. Commander Thane seemed to consider this for a moment. He turned to speak with someone off-screen, then looked back at Admiral Crix. Admiral, I'm going to give you an opportunity to withdraw from this area. Your ships are not welcome in human space. You have 1 hour to begin your departure. The Vorthan bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. Several officers made sounds that humans would recognize as laughter. The idea that these primitive beings could make demands of the mighty Vorthan Empire was absurd. Human, Admiral Crix said, his tone becoming stern. You clearly do not understand the situation. We have 5 battlecruisers to your 15 converted cargo ships. Our technology is centuries beyond yours. Your vessels appear to be held together with crude metal and desperation. Stand down immediately, or we will demonstrate why the Vorthan Empire rules this sector." Commander Thane's expression did not change. "Admiral, you're making a mistake based on incomplete information. I strongly advise you to reconsider your position." "The communication is ended," Admiral Crix announced. The human's image disappeared. He turned to his tactical officer. "Analysis of their weapon systems. Primitive kinetic weapons, Admiral. Projectile-based systems that might have been effective several centuries ago. Some kind of chemical explosive devices. Nothing that could penetrate our bioshields." Admiral Crix studied the tactical display. The human ships maintained a loose formation that seemed almost casual. There was no sign of panic or rushed preparation for combat. Either these humans were incredibly brave, or they were too primitive to understand the danger they faced. "Fleet positions?" he asked. "All vessels report ready, Admiral. The Stellar Dominion, Void Hunter, Deep Strike, Shadow Wing, and Night Razor are prepared for combat operations. 5 of the Empire's finest battlecruisers against 15 human cargo haulers. It would barely qualify as target practice." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Thunderstrike, Commander Thane walked between his crew stations. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency. Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her console. "Commander, all systems are showing green. The boys in engineering have the reactors running smooth, and our cargo containers are ready for deployment." "Weapons status?" Thane asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Jackson Park checked his displays. "All packages are loaded and ready, sir. The Vorthans are running deep scans, but they're not seeing past the outer shells. As far as they know, we're carrying mining equipment and prefab colony structures." Commander Thane nodded. Humanity had learned hard lessons about survival during their expansion into space. Early encounters with hostile environments, pirates, and aggressive alien wildlife had taught them that any ship venturing into the unknown needed to be prepared for anything. The concept of dedicated civilian vessels was a luxury they could not afford. "Dr. Kim, what do we know about Vorthon technology?" Thane asked his science officer. Dr. Sarah Kim had been studying the alien vessels through their sensors. "Their ships are impressive, Commander. Biomechanical construction, adaptive, armor, and energy weapons that could probably punch through conventional defenses. But sir, they're built for fighting opponents who play by the same rules they do, meaning they expect their enemies to use similar technology and tactics. Energy weapons against energy shields. Ship combat at long range, formal battle formations. They've probably never fought anyone who approaches warfare differently." Thane looked at the tactical display showing the 5 Vorthon vessels. Beautiful ships, he had to admit. Elegant curves and flowing lines that spoke of advanced engineering and artistic sensibility. They moved in perfect formation, like dancers performing a carefully choreographed routine. "Commander," Lieutenant Park called out, "the Vorthans are moving into attack formation. Standard encirclement pattern, understood. Signal the fleet. Execute Protocol 7. Across the human formation, 15 ships that had appeared to be simple cargo haulers began to change. What the Vorthons had mistaken for shipping containers and civilian modifications started to unfold and reconfigure. Weapons bays opened to reveal railgun batteries. Sensor arrays deployed from hidden compartments. Armor plating shifted to expose. Missile launchers and energy weapon ports. The UES Thunderstrike transformed from what looked like a bulk cargo hauler into something entirely different. Modular sections rearranged themselves into optimal combat configurations. Hidden weapons. Systems emerged from civilian camouflage. The ship's true nature became clear. It was not a converted cargo vessel, but a purpose-built warship designed to appear as something harmless until the moment it was needed. On the Stellar Dominion, alarms began sounding. The sensor operator turned to Admiral Crix with confusion evident in his large compound eyes. "Admiral, the human vessels, they're changing configuration. Energy signatures are spiking across their fleet." Admiral Crix looked at the tactical display in growing alarm. The blocky, primitive ships were transforming into something he had never seen before. Weapons were emerging from what had appeared to be cargo bays. The energy readings were climbing far beyond what should be possible for primitive technology. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence reports indicated these were civilian vessels." "Sir, it appears we may have been mistaken about their nature." The lead human ship completed its transformation. Where moments before there had been a crude cargo hauler, now there floated a vessel that looked like it had been designed for one purpose: war. Its hull bristled with weapons. Its energy signature indicated power systems, far more advanced than initial scans had suggested. Commander Thane's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral Crix, you have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal from human space. This is your final warning." Admiral Crix stared at the display showing the transformed human fleet. These were not the primitive cargo ships his scouts had reported. These were warships of a design philosophy he had never encountered. Where Vorthon vessels were elegant and streamlined, these human ships looked brutal and functional. Every surface seemed designed to mount weapons or absorb damage. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "I'm reading massive energy build-ups across the human fleet. These are not the primitive weapons we expected." Admiral Crix made a decision that would change everything. "All ships, open fire. Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable them for boarding." The 5 Vorthon battlecruisers unleashed their advanced energy weapons. Beams of coherent plasma lanced across space toward the human vessels. Any normal ship would have been crippled or destroyed by such an attack. The human ships absorbed the hits on their armor and kept coming. Where Vorthon weapons should have penetrated and disabled, they found layers of reactive armor and energy-dissipating materials. The humans had built their ships not to avoid damage, but to endure it. "Impossible," Admiral Crix whispered. "No primitive species should be able to withstand our weapons." Commander Thane's voice came over the channel again, calm and professional. "Admiral, you've made your choice. Now you'll learn why humans don't build ships to run away from fights. We build them to finish fights." The human fleet opened fire. But instead of the primitive kinetic weapons the Vorthons expected, they unleashed something far more sophisticated. Railguns fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Missile salvos deployed in coordinated patterns that overwhelmed point defense systems. Energy weapons that had been hidden inside innocent-looking cargo modules revealed themselves to be as advanced as anything in the Vorthon arsenal. The UES Thunderstrike's main gun spoke once. A projectile moving at 30% of light speed struck the Void Hunter's bioarmor and punched completely through the ship. The elegant Vorthon vessel buckled and began venting atmosphere. "Sir," the Vorthon sensor operator called out in panic, "the Void Hunter is showing critical damage." "How? Did they penetrate our bio—" Admiral Crix watched in stunned disbelief as his carefully planned encounter fell apart. These were not the primitive beings his intelligence reports had described. These were warriors who had disguised their warships as cargo haulers and lured his fleet into a false sense of superiority. The human fleet pressed their attack with mechanical precision. Each ship seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. Their weapons were not just advanced, they were specifically designed to counter the type of technology the Vorthons used. Admiral, his communications officer reported, were receiving a priority transmission from High Command. Additional fleets are being dispatched to assist us. Admiral Crix nodded, but his attention remained fixed on the tactical display. The humans had outmaneuvered him completely. They had allowed the Vorthons to approach, studied their technology and tactics, and then revealed their true capabilities at the perfect moment as the battle continued. One thing became increasingly clear: the galaxy had severely underestimated humanity. These beings had not simply stumbled into space with converted cargo ships. They had entered the galactic community with a fleet of purpose-built warships designed to look like anything except what they truly were. The question now was whether Admiral Crix and his fleet would survive long enough to warn the Empire about what humanity really was. The truth about human engineering. The Vorthon battlecruiser Deep Strike attempted to break away from the engagement, its bioarmor rippling as it tried to adapt to the unexpected weapons being used against it. Commander Thane watched the alien vessel's retreat, attempt with the calm analysis of someone who had studied every possible combat scenario. Lieutenant Park, intercept course on the fleeing vessel. Show them why running from human ships is not an effective strategy. Aye, sir. The Thunderstrike is responding. What Admiral Crix and his fleet were learning was that human military engineering followed a completely different philosophy than anything they had encountered. While other species built ships for specific roles, humans had developed modular systems that could adapt to any situation. The cargo containers that had disguised their weapons could be reconfigured for different mission requirements within minutes. Dr. Kim studied the sensor readings from the Vorthon vessels. Commander, their bioarmor is trying to adapt to our weapons, but they're having trouble with the variety we're throwing at them. They've never faced an opponent who uses kinetic energy and chemical weapons simultaneously. This was the key to human tactical thinking. Where other species specialized, humans diversified. Their ships carried multiple weapon systems because they never knew what kind of enemy they might face. The railguns could punch through energy shields. The missiles could overwhelm point defenses. The energy weapons could counter adaptive armor. No single defense could stop them all. The UES Retribution, one of the smaller vessels in the human fleet, demonstrated another aspect of human military design. When a Vorthon energy beam struck its port side, instead of trying to deflect the damage, the ship's modular armor sections ejected themselves before they could compromise the hull integrity. Within seconds, new armor plates deployed from internal storage to replace the damaged sections. Admiral Crix watched this display with growing horror. They're designed to be damaged, he said to his tactical officer. Their entire military philosophy assumes they will take hits, so they build their ships to survive and continue fighting. Sir, this is completely contrary to our understanding of proper naval architecture. Why would anyone design a ship expecting it to be destroyed? The answer to that question lay in human history. Humanity had spent millennia fighting wars on a single planet with limited resources. They had learned to build equipment that could be repaired, modified, and kept fighting even under the worst conditions. When they moved into space, they brought that philosophy with them. Commander Thane opened a communication channel to the entire Vorthon fleet. Admiral Crix, your vessel Deep Strike is attempting to flee. I want you to understand something important. Every human ship in this fleet can outrun your fastest vessel while carrying full weapons loads. We didn't build these ships for evacuation. We built them to hunt. The UES Thunderstrike proved his point by overtaking the Deep Strike within minutes. The human ship's engines, hidden inside what had appeared to be cargo modules, were actually more advanced than Vorthan propulsion systems. The humans had simply made them look crude and primitive to hide their true capabilities. Sir, the Vorthon communications officer reported, High Command is requesting a full tactical assessment. They want to know if we require immediate reinforcement. Admiral. Crix looked at the tactical display of his 5 ships. One was crippled and venting atmosphere. 2 others were showing significant damage. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel and showed no signs of slowing their attack. Tell High Command that we have encountered a species that does not match our intelligence reports. These humans are not primitive. They are not using converted cargo ships. They have purpose-built warships designed specifically to counter our technology. The truth was even more concerning than Admiral Crix realized. The human fleet was not just randomly assembled warships. Each vessel had been specifically designed based on intelligence gathered about Vorthan military capabilities. Humanity had been studying the Empire for years, learning about their tactics, technology, and weaknesses. Chief Engineer Santos spoke up from her station on the Thunderstrike. Commander, the Vorthan ships are trying to adapt their bioarmor to our weapons. Should we switch to the secondary weapon configurations? Negative, Chief. Let them adapt to what they think we're using. When their reinforcements arrive, we'll show them what human ships can really do. This was another aspect of human tactical thinking that the Vorthans did not understand. The weapons currently being used were not humanity's best systems. They were deliberately chosen to be effective while concealing the true extent of human capabilities. The humans were fighting a limited engagement while gathering intelligence for the larger conflict they knew was coming. Dr. Kim monitored the Vorthan communications. Commander, they're calling for reinforcements. At least 3 more fleets are being dispatched to this location. How long until they arrive? Based on their transmission times and known Vorthan fleet speeds, approximately 6 hours. Commander Thane nodded. 6 hours was more than enough time to demonstrate to Admiral Crix exactly what kind of species humanity really was. All ships, implement Protocol 12. Show these aliens what human engineering looks like when we stop pretending to be merchants. Across the human fleet, the transformation continued. What had been revealed as disguised warships now revealed themselves to be something even more sophisticated. The modular design of human vessels allowed them to reconfigure not just their appearance, but their entire operational parameters. The UES Thunderstrike's hull began to shift and reconfigure. Sections that had contained weapons moved to optimal firing positions. New systems emerged from hidden compartments. The ship's power core, which had been operating at a fraction of its capacity, began generating energy levels that made the sensors scream warnings. Admiral, the Vorthan sensor operator, called out in panic. The human ships are showing massive energy spikes. Power levels are increasing beyond anything we've recorded. Admiral Crix watched in fascination and horror as the human vessels transformed once again. They had not been showing their true capabilities at all. The weapons that had already crippled one of his ships and damaged to others were apparently their secondary systems. The UES Retribution demonstrated the next level of human technology. its hull reconfigured into a new shape optimized for energy projection. A weapon system that had been completely hidden emerged from the ship's core structure. The weapon charged, with energy readings that exceeded anything in the Vorthan arsenal. "What kind of weapon is that?" Admiral Crix demanded. His science officer studied the readings with growing alarm. "Sir, it appears to be some kind of exotic matter weapon. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The retribution fired once. The beam that emerged was not the crude energy weapons the Vorthans expected from a primitive species. It was a focused stream of exotic particles that bypassed the deep strike bioarmor entirely. The Vorthan vessel simply stopped. Its systems went offline, its bioarmor ceased functioning, and it began drifting powerless through space. Commander Thane's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral, that was a neural disruptor beam. It's designed specifically to counter biomechanical technology. Your crew is unharmed, but your ship is completely disabled." The implications of this hit Admiral Crix like a physical blow. The humans had weapons designed specifically to counter Vorthan technology. This was not a chance encounter with a primitive species. This was a carefully planned engagement with an enemy that had studied the Empire and prepared accordingly. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Shadow Wing and Night Razor are requesting permission to withdraw. They report that human weapons are specifically calibrated to penetrate our defenses." Admiral Crix made a decision that went against everything the Vorthan Empire stood for. "All ships, cease fire. Open communication channels to the human fleet." The battle stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Commander Thane appeared on the main display of the Stellar Dominion. "Admiral, I'm listening." "Commander Thane, it appears we have severely underestimated your species. Your ships, your weapons, your tactics. None of this matches our intelligence reports." Thane nodded. "That was intentional, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that the best way to survive first contact with a potentially hostile species is to let them underestimate you until you understand their capabilities. You've been watching us, studying us, for 3 years, Admiral. Ever since our deep space probes detected Vorthan vessels in nearby systems. We knew contact was inevitable, so we prepared." Admiral Crix felt a chill run through his biomechanical body. "The cargo ships we've been tracking for months were intelligence-gathering vessels disguised as merchant ships. Every Vorthan fleet movement, every tactical exercise, every technological demonstration has been observed and analyzed. The full scope of human preparation became clear. They had not stumbled into space unprepared. They had methodically studied the dominant power in their region, identified its strengths and weaknesses, and developed specific countermeasures. "What do you want from the Vorthan Empire?" Admiral Crix asked. Commander Thane was quiet for a moment before responding. "We want what every species wants, Admiral. The right to exist without being conquered or enslaved. The right to explore the galaxy and establish our place among the stars. The right to be left alone to develop as we see fit. And if the Empire cannot accept these terms," Thane's expression became deadly serious, "then you'll discover that the weapons and ships you've seen today represent only a small fraction of what humanity has prepared. We didn't become the dominant species on our world by accepting defeat, Admiral. We became dominant by making sure that anyone who threatened us regretted it." As if to emphasize his point, long-range sensors detected the approach of additional human vessels. But these were not disguised as cargo ships. These were unmistakably military vessels, larger and more heavily armed than anything currently engaged in the battle. "Admiral," his sensor operator reported quietly, I'm reading 12 more human ships approaching. These appear to be their actual battle fleet. Admiral Crix realized that everything his empire thought it knew about humanity was wrong. They were not a primitive species with converted cargo ships. They were a sophisticated military power that had successfully disguised their true capabilities while studying their potential enemies. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about the species called humanity. They did not build ships to run from fights. They did not develop technology for show or elegance. Everything they created served one purpose: ensuring that they would survive and thrive, no matter who tried to stop them. As the reinforced human fleet approached, Admiral Crix made a decision that would change the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. He opened a communication channel to Vorthan High Command. High Command, this is Admiral Crix. I am recommending immediate cessation of all hostile activities toward the human species. We have severely misjudged their capabilities and intentions. I repeat, do not engage human vessels unless you are prepared for a full-scale war with a technologically sophisticated enemy. The age of Vorthon dominance in this sector was ending. The age of humanity had begun. Asterisk.